The question given to us in front of us is the standard wage rate of a particular grade of labor is rupees 7.50. During a period, 650 hours were actually worked and 200 units of a product were produced. The standard time allowed is 3 hours per unit. The actual wage rate amounted to rupees 8 per hour worked. Compute labor variances. Actual rate is 7.50. Actual time given to us is 650 and we need to calculate standard wages. We will do some basic calculation. Standard time is given 3 hours and standard wages for actual time. Actual time is equal to standard rate into actual time. Standard rate given to us is 7.50 into actual time is 650. So, actual wage rate for actual time comes out to be rupees 4875. We need to show it in rupees 4875. Next is standard wages for actual time utilized. Standard wages for actual time utilized are see, if you are having any confusion while solving the questions, not a problem. First, I will solve it and I will revise it again for your convenience. Standard wages for actual time utilized is equal to standard rate into actual time utilized. Actual time utilized. So standard rate is 7.50 into actual time utilized is 650 hours. $650. 650 hours. It is rupees 4875. Next is standard wages for standard time for actual output. Now, in the question, it is given 200 units were produced and time allowed was 3 hours per unit. So, actual output was 200 units and time allowed is 3. So, actual output is 600. So, standard wages for standard time for actual output. Standard wages for standard time for actual output. $4,500. So this is all your standard wages for standard time for actual output, 4,500. Now labor cost variance. We will calculate labor cost variance. Labor cost variance, we know it's like, if we see in the question, it's standard time into standard rate minus actual rate into actual time. Standard time into standard rate has been solved in equation number this. Standard time into standard rate, that is 4500, minus actual rate into actual time. Okay, we have not calculated actual rate into actual time. No problem, we will calculate. Actual rate into actual time is the actual wages paid for actual time, which is actual rate into actual time. So it will be 8 into 650, which is 5200. So this is actual rate into actual time. Now, labor cost variance is equal to standard rate into standard time. As you can see from the formula, it is standard rate into standard time minus actual rate into actual time. 4500 minus actual rate into actual time we have calculated as 5200, which will give you 700 adverse as a labor cost variance. Next is labor rate variance. Labor rate variance is equal to labor rate variance is 2 minus 1. 2 minus 1 means labor rate variance. Formula for labor rate variance is standard rate into standard time minus standard rate into actual time. So in this question, standard rate into actual time, we have calculated 4875. 4875 minus standard rate into standard time. Standard rate into, it's formula for labor rate variance is actual time into standard rate minus actual time into actual rate, which is calculated over here 5200. So it is 4875 minus 5200. Next is 700 adverse. Next is labor efficiency variance. Labor efficiency variance. The formula for calculation of labor efficiency variance is standard rate into standard time minus standard rate into actual time. So standard rate into standard time, we have 4500. We have calculated SR into ST as 4500 minus 4875. 4875 means SR into 80, which is 4875. $375 adverse. So we have three kind of variances. 700 again, its labor rate variance is 4875 minus 5200 will give you 325. 325 adverse, and labor efficiency is 375 adverse. Now labor cost variance is equal to labor rate variance plus labor efficiency variance, which gives you labor cost variance 700 is equal to 325, 325 plus 375, which will give you 700 adverse on both sides. So this is all your labor variances. If you have not understood the question or there is some confusion in your mind regarding the question, let me explain you again. In this question, we have to calculate labor variances as there is a single composition of labor, means there is no kind of labor mentioned. So we will take out only three kind of variances: labor cost variance, labor rate variance, labor efficiency variance. Now, see, in this question, we have to calculate first. Actual rate is 7.50. No, actual rate is actually 8. Sorry, there is certain mistake. It is 8. So actual rate is 8. 8 into actual time is 650 hours. So 8 into 650 will give you 5200. Now we will calculate standard wages for actual time, which is given by the formula standard rate into actual time. We have 4875. That is 7.50 into 650. Then standard wages for actual time utilized, which is given by the formula SR into actual time utilized, 7.50 into 650, which will give you rupees 4875. Now standard wages time for actual output. Now in this question, the output produced was 200 units at the rate of rupees 3 hours per unit, which is standard 3 hours. So actual output will be 600. That is 200 into 3, 600. Therefore, we have written standard wages 7.50 for standard time for actual output 600, which will give you rupees 4500. Now we have input all these values in the given formula labor cost variance. We have subtracted we have checked the formulas, and we will input all these values in the given formula. That is 4500 minus 5200, rate variance 4875 minus 5200, efficiency variance 4500 minus 4875. Labor cost variance is equal to labor rate variance plus labor efficiency variance. So two sides are equal, hence the verification is done. Next is another question we will be doing here is a gang of workers normally consists of 30 men, 15 women, and 10 children. They are paid at standard hourly rate as under: men rupees 0.80, women 0.60, children 0.40. In a normal week of 40 hours, the gang is expected to produce 2000 units of output. During the week ending on 31st December 2022, the gang consisted of 40 men, 10 women, and 5 children. The actual wages paid were rupees 0.70, 0.60, and 0.30. 4 hours were lost due to abnormal idle time and 1600 units were produced. Calculate labor variances. So the question, if you can see in front of you, has lot of calculations. Lot of calculations in the sense, if it will be looking very complicated. So to make the question calculation easy, What we will do first, we will write all the formulas in front of us. And now proceeding, we will do certain basic calculations. Basic calculation means, first of all, we will see what is actually easy for us to calculate. Actual rate into actual time. So we will calculate actual rate into actual time. Actual rate into actual time. Men, women, children. Men, we all know, actual rate for men, women, and children. It's given in the question. We will copy 0.70, 0.65, 0.30. Then actual time. Actual time is given to us. We will calculate the actual time. See in the question, 40 hours were worked. 40 hours were worked, and therefore actual time for men will be 40 into 40, 1600. Next will be 40 into 10, it will be 400. Next 40 into 5, it will be 200. So we will multiply all these things, all these values we have input. So it will be, total is 1120, 260 plus 60. It will give you 1440. So this will be your actual output. Next is standard rate into actual time. Standard rate into actual time. If we can see, it is given, it is required in solving the question. Now, how we calculate standard rate? We know is given as 0. Again, we will do this calculation separately for men, women, and children. It is 0.80, 0.80, next 0.60, 0.40, 0.40. Now multiply it with actual time. Actual time is given over here, 1600. Next is 1280, 240 plus 80. Now we will do the total of all these three. If you are not if you are getting confused in any of the concept, don't worry. I will, after solving this particular question, I will repeat the formula again. I will repeat the explanation again, sorry. So, if there is certain problem, no problem, we will write like this, 1600. Now next is standard wages for actual time utilized. Why we calculate standard wages and for standard wages for actual time utilized? Now, standard wages for actual time utilized. Why we emphasize so much on actual time utilized in case of labor variances? Because in case of labor variances, we have additional concept of idle time. So, considering the fact that labor doesn't do whole work and is not busy for minute to minute, there is certain idle time which is always there. So, we need to be very careful that how much actual time has been utilized by the labor while while doing any sort of work, and therefore actual time utilized is very important for us understanding the standard wages. Now, actual time utilized. There is certain calculation we need to do how we will find actual time utilized. Actual time utilized is equal to actual time minus idle time. So, actual time we have actual time is 1600 minus idle time is given in the question. So, what is idle time? Idle time is 4 hours were lost due to abnormal idle time. So basically the idle time is 4 hours. So in case of men, it will be 4 into 40. That is number of 40 men. We know in the question, if you can see that 40 men, 10 women, and 5 children. So, idle time for 40 men is 160. We have calculated. And idle time for women is 400 minus 40. And in case of children, it is 200 minus 20. It's 360. Sorry, it's 160. We will write it over here. 1440, 360, and 180. So it will total will be 1980. So actual time utilized is 1980. We all now have understood this. So in this particular calculation, SR into actual time utilized, formula will be SR into actual time utilized. Standard rate 0.80 into 1440 0.60 into 360, then 0.40 into 180. So the total will be 1152 plus 216 plus 72, and the total will be 1440. So this is all about SR into actual time utilized. Now next question, next calculation, we will first of all, we have done this calculation, actual time utilized. AR into 80, we will number it as 1. SR into 80, we will number it as 3. And this is 3. And next is 4. standard standard wages for actual time. Standard wages for actual time. Had labor been used in the standard mix ratio? Had labor been used in the standard mix ratio? Now, what we have done in this particular question, labor mix variance is equal to standard rate into revised actual time. RAT stands for revised actual time. In this particular this formula, as you can see, RAT stands for revised actual time. This is your RAT. Now, revised actual time, the formula for revised actual time is total time of actual mix into standard labor mix ratio. Total time of actual mix into standard labor mix ratio. Now, we know standard rate, we will copy them as it is because we have copied standard rate over here because it is when we are calculating labor mix variance, we have to multiply this particular standard rate with revised actual time. So it is revised actual time. Now, revised actual time. We need to calculate revised actual time. Total time of actual mix. Total time of actual mix, if you can see, it is 1980. Actual mix is 1980. Actual time utilized is actually the actual time you have used, and mix by mix we mean we need to add men, women, children, time of men, women, and children. So actual mix will be 1980. Again, it will be same for all three. So we will then multiply it, sorry, control Z. Again, it is saying standard mix ratio. What is standard mix ratio over here? How do we calculate standard mix ratio? So for calculating standard mix ratio, I'll show you calculations separately. Standard time for standard output of 2000 units is equal to standard number of workers into normal hours per week. That is, it will be standard number of workers multiplied by normal hours per week. Normal hours per week. So standard time we will again calculate. Thirty into 40. Standard number of workers we have been given in the question 30, 15 and 10. So standard number of workers we will note down 30, 15, 10. multiplied by normal hours per week. We know normal hours per week are 40 hours. So it will be 40. It will be same for all three. 1200, we will get 600, next 400. Now total time is 2200 hours. Standard time for actual output of 1600 units is equal to standard time. I think we have distracted somewhere. No problem. Actually, we were calculating standard mix ratio. No problem. We have been standard mix. We know for 1200 and 2200 hours. So we will take the ratio of both these figures. Why is we will multiply it. Then we will take 600 divided by 2200. Next, we will take 400 divided by 2200. Now, these figures will come out to be rupees 864 plus 324 plus 144, which will 1332. 1332 will be your total. Next is we need to calculate SR into ST. That is standard wages for standard time for actual output. Standard wages for standard time for actual output is equal to SR into ST. So in that particular case, standard time into standard output. Standard output. Standard time for standard output we will calculate for men, women, children separately. It will be 1200 into 1600, that is actual output, divided by, sorry, that is the standard time. Sorry, it's actual output. We always take value by the actual output, divided by standard output. Six hundred 1600 divided by 2000. Next is 400 multiplied by 1600 divided by 2000. So it will be give you the value of 960 hours. Then you have value of 480 hours. Then again you have value of 320 hours, which is 1760 hours. Then 0.80 into 960, standard time for actual output. And we have got again 0.60 into 480. Next 0.40 into 320. Then we will get 768 plus 288 on 128. We will get 1184. That is standard rate into standard time. So this is all about the calculations we have done. Now we will input these calculations in a formula. So first we will calculate labor cost variance, which will be standard rate into standard time minus actual rate into actual time. And here it is 5 minus 1. 5 is standard rate into standard time minus 1, that is actual rate into actual time, which will give you, let us, that is 5 minus 1. 5 minus 1. It is 1184 minus 1440. It will give you 256 Edwards. Next is labor price variance. Sorry, it is called labor rate variance actually. Labor rate variance is equal to labor rate variance is 2 minus 1. 2 is 1600 minus 1, 1440. So it is 2 minus 1. 1600 minus 1440. It will give the value of 160 favorable. Next is labor efficiency variance. Labor efficiency variance is calculated as 5 minus 2. 5 minus 2. 5 is 1184 minus 1600 will give you 416 Edwards. Next is labor idle time variance. Labor idle time variance. 3 minus 2. We know 3, 1440 minus 2 is 1600. So 3 minus 2, it will give you 1440 minus 1600. It's your 160 adverse. Fifth is labor mix variance. Labor mix variance is equal to 4 minus 3. 4 minus 3. 4 is 1332 minus 1440, which will give you the value of 108 adverse. Next is 6 labor yield variance. Labor yield variance is equal to 5 minus 4, equation 5 minus 4. It will give you the value of 1184 minus 1332. 1184 minus 1332 is it will give you 148 adverse. So this is labor yield variance. We have calculated all the values related to labor variances. Now there were so many calculations, there was so much to do, but what usually students have fear that how there is so much of calculation. But if you are going to the doing the calculation this way, first trying to find out what value you need to calculate given in the formula, and you are calculating them one by one, you are solving the question step by step, so definitely there won't be any kind of problem in solving the question. Now, what we are supposed to do, what I have, as I have said, if there is any confusion prevailing in your mind, let us keep it for the end of the session. And in the end of this, but before winding up the session, let me brief it up again what sort of calculations we have done. We have been given a standard composition of labor, men, women, and children. This is our standard 30 men, 15 women, and 10 children, and there is standard rates. Now this is standard output 2000 units, and normal working for is a normal week, it's a 40 hours. Working hours are 40 hours. And now this is actual composition 40, 10 and 5, and actual wages are given, and which is just been mentioned specifically that 4 hours were lost due to abnormal idle time and 1600 units were actually produced. So 2000 units were standard output, and this is your 1600 units. Now first of all, we will calculate actual rate into actual time, which is a value which has been mentioned over here. Actual rate into actual time, men, women and children. Actual rate is this, and actual time is 40 hours were worked, and for 40 women, men were there. 40 into 40, 1600, 40 into 10, 400, 40 into 5, 200, 11, 20, 260 and 60, 1440. Next is the standard rate into actual time, men, women and children. Men, we have taken standard rate. Actual time we have already calculated over here. We will simply multiply and total and do the totaling of all the calculation. Then standard wages for actual time utilized, SR into actual time utilized. SR is this. Actual time utilized is what we have done. Actual time utilized is equal to actual time minus idle time. Actual time 1440, 400 minus 40, 360, 200 minus 20, 180. Now we will get all these actual time utilized, and we will multiply it by standard rate. Next is standard wages. Now we know that for labor mix variance, we all need to calculate revised actual time. And revised actual time is total time of actual mix into standard labor mix ratio. So we know we have calculated the actual mix is 1980. We have already calculated here, which is same for men, women, and children. Now, similarly, standard mix ratio. Standard mix ratio is like how much time has been utilized and how much actually was the standard. So 1200 divided by 2200. Just a second. 600 divided by 2200 and 400 divided by 2200. This is a standard mix ratio and we will take out the values and do the total. Next is standard wages for standard time. We have certain spelling mistake over here. We have this standard time. So 0.80 into 960 standard time we have calculated over here. Standard time is always calculated for actual output. Actual output is 1600. Now what will be the standard time? For men, we have standard time into standard output. Standard output is 1200, 600, 1200, that is 30 into 40, 1200, 15 into 40, 600, and 40 into 10, 400. Then 1600, we all know, divided by 2000. 2000 is the total labor composition, 1200, 600, and so on. So this is 2000 is the standard unit of outputs. So 1600 divided by 2000, 1600 divided by 2000, 1600 divided by 2000 into the labor time. It will give you 960, 480 and 320, the total of which is 760. So what we will do, input these values 960, 480 and 320 and we will get 768, 288 and 128. Now, after this, we have, let us clarify one thing. So, okay, we are done with all the calculations. 1600, I have already told you, this is standard time we have actually calculated for actual output. Actual output we were having 1600 units, is this value is from here and 2000 value is from here. Actual output, that means actual output divided by standard output into the standard time taken by the labor. So we will input all these values and we will get the values. Now SR into ST, we know SR into ST, we have multiplied it and taken the values. For this, now our 75% job is done. When you are doing this calculation, now only task is remaining with you is to input these values according to the formula. For more convenience, we have numbered these values 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 5 minus 1 will give you 1440 and 2 minus 1 will give you 160 and 5 minus 2, these 5 minus 2, this selection of 5, 4, 3, 2 or whatever equation we are selecting, we need to see the formula and see what is required in the formula and we will input these values. Labor idle time variance 160 adverse, mix variance 108 adverse, yield variance 148 adverse. Now we will get all these values and we have got the formula we have recorded all these values in a given formula and calculated the labor variances. You can verify these equations with the help of verification can be done. Let us see how will you verify these things. Verification can be done with the equation. Labor cost variance is equal to labor rate variance plus labor efficiency variance. Labor cost variance is equal to 256. We know it is in adverse. We usually write adverse in front of those variances which are negative. It is 160 favorable plus 416 adverse. 160, 160 favorable plus 416 adverse. 16 adverse. So it will be 256 adverse is equal to, if you will solve this equation, you will get 256 adverse. So hence this particular equation is verified. Next variance, you have to calculate labor efficiency variance. Labor efficiency variance is equal to labor mix variance plus labor idle time variance plus labor yield variance. Now labor efficiency variance is 416 adverse is equal to 160 adverse plus 108 adverse plus 148 adverse. So this is all about your labor efficiency variance. And this is all about the verification we have done in case of labor efficiency variance. Is equal, we have idea, means this is all verification we have done whether labor efficiency variance is equal to labor material variance plus labor idle time variance plus labor yield variance.